Chapter 98, The Familiar of Gaston. Huh, so that's why your clothes are all messed up. Yeah, for you healed my body up really good, but most of my equipment got busted, so. How about you come shopping with me sometime tomorrow? Sure, why not? Fuyu's coming as well, of course. Could you please let her, Sir Gaston? Well, if it's just for one day, then I suppose I can. You mean it, Sir Gaston? Geh. Fuyu pushed Pochi's head down as she sprung up from her seat toward Gaston. Betty chuckled, and Gaston let out what could constitute a sigh through his nose. Wait a second, do the magic guardians not get days off very often or something? Anyways, back on topic, even though Betty had lost to Gaston, it sounded like she had put up a good fight. Especially the way she had strategized based on the limited nature of that particular situation. Man, I would have loved to see that in action. But I never expected to get a pass after losing the match, you know. I wouldn't regret it since I did give it all I had and stuff, but then again, I did tell you that it constitutes a passing grade, didn't I? Ow wow, that hurt, Fuyu. Pochi puffed up her face, and Fuyu proceeded to poke those puffs while also apologizing to her. So what happened on your side, Asley? What did you have to do for your test? Oh. So first, we I fought with Sir Baron of the Six Braves, and won. Ahem. Commotion broke out among the guild patrons again. It seemed that Gaston was surprised as well, what with him widening one eye. Baron. That's the one who's been rumored to have recently become one of the Six Braves in Blazer's stead. Yes. He wanted to measure the abilities of a mage's familiar first before proceeding with the tests, so Pochi had to fight him. Opinions started spreading among the other adventurers present, such as on how it must have been too much work for him and how humiliating it must be to be defeated by a familiar. I did think he was plenty good as far as his abilities were concerned, so these guys were probably biased by their prejudice and jealousy. Let me confirm that, little girl, you won against him. I sure did. Aren't I amazing? Perhaps you could congratulate me by ordering me some desserts and moving your seat a bit away, sir. Heh, very well. Wadash. To everyone's surprise, Gaston actually ordered some desserts for Pochi, and moved his seat a little closer to her. Gaston then proceeded to pet Pochi's head as she closed her eyes with her paws. The scene was met with an odd silence of everyone in the vicinity, Fuyu included. I know I haven't had many chances to see this side of Gaston, but it was quite a surprise that he was so nice and gentle. Betty was so surprised that her jaw dropped to the floor, albeit only briefly. She shook her head and asked me about my story once again. So I proceeded to explain what I could to her, and by the time the other adventurers flooded over our table to try and listen, the story reached the second stage of my evaluation. Doing a quest for the guild, considering it was S-ranked, it must have been a lot of trouble, right? Well, there's a lot of stuff I ought not to talk about now, so maybe someday later. Still, that is quite an unconventional evaluation process. Gaston commented, and I expressed my agreement with a wry smile. It was totally true that my examiners had operated it their own way. But considering that my target had been the resistance, I reckon examinees who merely qualified for S rank wouldn't necessarily succeed. That was because, despite most of the mages and warriors there averaging on rank B, they also had to take on Warren the Black Emperor, whose abilities were fit for the S rank himself, and also Jennifer the Bone Fist, a former member of the Six Braves. An average examinee wouldn't be able to get it done in the 5 hours that I had been allotted. Does Gaston not usually concern himself with the details of the guild's works? I would have expected him to know about it, what with the other party being the resistance. Perhaps I should investigate this matter further while I'm still here in the royal capital. So that's all you had to do? No, there was one more. Had to show Sir Jacob a magic spell that would surprise him. Must have been quite a challenge, right? Yeah. I figured he'd know most of the spells out there, being one of the Six Braves and all. So I thought and you mean you didn't actually have an original spell beforehand, Master? NGH. If I let her keep talking, she may very well expose the business with Warren's lot. That was why I refrained from disclosing any more information and only clenched my fist. I've got to save some strength to pull Pochi's tail later, after all. Whoops, my hand slipped. Yoch. What are you doing, you foolish master? If only you'd kept your mouth shut, my evaluation would have been way easier. You damn stupid dog. If only you were talented, you would have gotten to rank S ages ago. If only you were a competent familiar, I would have gotten to rank S centuries ago. Gye. Sir Gaston. Are you looking to employ a familiar? I'm helpful, I swear. Of all people she could have asked, she chose to approach Gaston first. Oh, how far she has fallen. Oh, that reminds me, you do have a slot open. Wait, I suddenly felt an urge to give back to nature and make space for tomorrow's food, so, excuse me. That was quite a convoluted way to say, use the toilet, guess that's another girly aspect of her. And now that it's brought up, I just remembered that Gaston did have a familiar. I wonder what creature it is. Since he's one of the 6 archmages, I reckon it's a fairly impressive monster. I suppose I ought to introduce someone to all of you. House. As Gaston invoked the familiar summoning magic spell, a shadowy figure emerged from the spell circle. It was small, as in even smaller than Irene's sparrow friend. This is Konoha, my familiar. It was a mouse, and as the name suggested, it was small and delicate like leaves fluttering in the wind. It hopped on Gaston's hand and stood up. Oh, Konoha. It has been a while. Fuyu. It's been a while, yes. Master, who are these people? Asley and Betty, and that's Pochi. They were the ones who took the rank-up evaluation to rank S today. Oh ho. I'd always heard that familiars' personalities resembled their masters, but this case seemed to be a particularly close resemblance. Although a critter, its tone of expression was exactly the same as Gaston's. Aside from it giving an impression of being somewhat young, the creature felt very much like a mini Gaston. Hello. I'm the one called Asley. And I'm Betty. Nice to meet you. I am Pochi. Don't you need to go use the potty, my familiar? Right, no need for that excuse anymore. Of course. It's quite rare for you to introduce me to someone, let alone a group, Master. Everyone, I am Konoha. The pleasure is all mine. Konoha bowed its head down extremely briefly. Well, a bow is a bow, I suppose. It seems that the young man will be talking about his original spell. You ought to listen to it as well. Oh ho, of course, anything you say, Master. Shouldn't he be keeping something like that to himself, sir? There's no need to worry. No one in this adventurers' guild has the ability on the young man's level. I reckon there isn't a chance of him being copied. In response to that statement, Betty opened her eyes wide in shock, Fuyu pinned her mouth shut, Konoha swept its line of sight around the group, and Pochi burst out in laughter with tears welling up in the corners of her eyes. Without a doubt, Gaston has praised me. Me, in the Royal Capital Regalia Adventurers Guild, the strongest, huh? Phew. Fwahaha. Look at that, Pochi. Recognize how impressive I am. What are you even boasting about? I did legitimately defeat one of the 6 braves, you know. That's right, you've surprised my brother and Blazer quite a bit since you've come back, Asley. Bruce has praised me too, you know. Yeah, Pochi's gotten strong, too. Master, these people, right, they're otherwise brilliant, save for the flaw in their mentality. Excuse me, everyone. We all ought to calm down and, disregarding Fuyu's attempt at controlling us, we made quite a fuss in the guild establishment. Eventually, Betty realized that Konoha's "these people" might have included her as well, and was quite angry at it as a result. Gaston, at his wit's end, stepped aside from all of it as the vicinity got more and more hyped up by the story of our rank-up evaluations, including Gaston's legendary display of power. Once we were back in our inn, the overstuffed Pochi refused to become the Pochi pillow for tonight. When I tried poking her belly, she said some gibberish like how she felt like she was turning into a water fountain. Now then, tomorrow I'll be out shopping with Betty and Fuyu. Since it'll be in a group, I reckon things won't ever get awkward like when I'd gone with Haruhana. Fuyu hadn't gotten to say much of anything today, so it'll be a good chance to ask her stuff about the Royal Capital Magic Guardians, too. At any rate, I'm so eagerly looking forward to tomorrow. Chapter 99, Gramps again. Asley. Asley, boy. I'm sleepy. Asley. Asley, boy. You can keep on sleeping. Just listen to what I have to say. I'm sleepy. Excuse me, Asley. I'm sleepy. I assume you are aware that my master would never willingly wake up in his own dream, sir. NGH. You are Asley's familiar? Heh. What are you laughing at? It's been a long time since I last had a chance to do this, you see. What could you be referring to? Identify yourself, intruder. Goodness gracious, what a rowdy bunch. Oh, I see you are finally awake. Good night. I'll excuse myself as well, then. Good night, sir. Hold it right there. What could have compelled you to ignore me so? Bad luck. Ho, but the others would say that you have started scoring well in things, would you not agree? Bah, always so unpredictable, this old-timer. Even with my new and improved appraisal magic skills that I had attained with the help of Melchi, I still couldn't get a read on this Gramps. I see the depth of your curiosity hasn't changed at all. So, what business do you have with us this time, sir? I'm feeling like a water fountain like now, so I'm not exactly in my most comfortable state. That's got nothing to do with this, doesn't it? I'm also not having the most comfortable sleep, what with there being no Pochi pillow for tonight. You have met up with young Warren without issue, I take it. I don't know how you even knew that. Seriously, it's not very nice to eavesdrop on people's daily lives, don't you think? Just like last time, Pochi brought us cushions, and we all sat down cross-legged on them. And I, just like last time, materialized a low table, complete with a ready-to-serve set of tea. The three of us sipped tea in the flat, pure white dimension. As bizarre as it may look from the third-person perspective, I would consider it a scene worthy of nostalgic sentiments. Anyways, how exactly does Warren play into this business? Did you also appear to him in his dreams or something? Ho, no, he does not know about us. He seems to be aware of God's will, however, that is all. What do you mean, God's will? It is in the message he delivered to you. Was the part where he told me to head to the place of my beginning? Wouldn't that mean the divine messenger also knew of its significance? Then just tell me. What does that place have that's so important? That, I cannot say. Go there yourself, and it will be revealed to you. Bah, can this old-timer afford to be this carefree? With the Devil King's resurrection coming in the near future, I don't understand why he's talking at such a leisurely pace. That reminds me. I've had one thing in mind that I'd like to ask this Gramps in case I got to see him again. But before that, I suppose I ought to get his business out of the way first. All right, then, let's get down to business. What are you here for this time? Very well. The Devil King will be entering his fetal stage 4 years from now. Surely the world will be wrapped in conflict from then on. Monster activity will increase greatly, and many towns and cities will fall to ruin in the face of powerful adversaries. That was quite a bit faster than I'd expected. The Devil King in his fetal stage would infuse monsters all over the world with arcane energy, turning them ferocious and fortifying their strength. When that happens, it would no longer be safe for an average person to live outside of fortified settlements. And then, a few years later, the Devil King would be born in all his glory. I offer our apologies. Until now, we haven't been able to get a feasible estimate of how long it would be. When you said monster activity will increase, how much of an increase did you mean? The already existing monster would be elevated to a higher rank of strength. That, and the long-lost ancient monsters would appear in this world once again. Wait, wouldn't that mean? Wouldn't that mean A-ranked monsters would rise to rank S, and rank S ones would go up to SS? What about the already SS monsters like the Ogre King? How ridiculously strong will they get? I just remembered something. When it came to monster ranks, I thought the highest to be documented was SS, but in several passages of certain ancient texts, a certain keyword had stood out as quite mysterious. Right, I think it was. They are far beyond what one could classify in relation to everything else. Their time is an era in which the holy warriors fight to the limits of their wisdom and power. They shall be called, the Apostles of Despair. Indeed. I see, so that's why it seemed so intentional that the keyword stood out. But in this day and age, where one would rarely catch a glimpse of an S-ranked monster, there's no way in hell I could imagine how strong monsters above rank SS could be. Or rather, they didn't want to. Could that be why humanity had kept it away from their memories and historical records? Absolute fear wasn't something one could necessarily prevail over, after all. The Devil King's existence was that big of a deal. Could it be that, by knowledge of the Devil King's existence, humanity has? That is right, Asley. Faced with the Devil King's dreadful existence, humanity's innovations have stagnated. They could not progress onward with such an absolute power in their way. Under normal circumstances, God would have blessed them with his power, so that there may be some progressive minds to lead the advancements of technology and culture. However, the Devil King was, and still is, such a major spanner in the works. That is one reason why there is not much difference in now and the age in which you had been born. I see. One reason? You mean there is something else? The divine messenger, as if hesitant to say what he was about to, took another sip of tea. Looking at the big picture, it ultimately traces back to the Devil King's existence, but... Please tell me about it, and don't be vague. Gramps, seeming to have realized the seriousness of the tone I took, set his cup down on the table. It concerns the deeds of the Devil Kin in the nation's upper tiers. Damn it. I feared that would be the case. Master. I'm not getting what that means at all. The nation's upper tiers, Grey, Ishtar of the Black, and Lloyd of the White, was not the Devil King's advance party, however. The nation, it's already being ruled by the Devil Kin. Zemel, and here we have somewhat plausible explanation, why tech level does not progress in fantasy worlds. The Devil Kin conspiracy theory. What? Then that means dash. What does it mean, sir? Quit trying to act cute. Okay, listen up, it means that. What does it mean? See? You don't know it either, master. Shut up. At least my cute act was actually cute, unlike yours. Oh, good gracious. I am starting to worry for you too. Listen well, the Devil Kin are not as simple creatures as the monsters. The people placing their faith in the black and white chain is no different from them worshipping the Devil Kin. With every voice of worship toward them, they grow stronger. During the time without the Devil King to lead them, those of the Devil Kin instead strove to become the Devil King themselves. This is it, the organization intends to use Devil Kin worship to face off against the Devil King directly and with no reservations. One misunderstanding after another. We had been helplessly operating on a misunderstanding this whole time. That's right, it had been written so in the black and white chain contract, of all things. On the occasion of the Devil King's invasion, the first party shall agree to participate in the battles to defeat the Devil King and provide complete support to the holy warriors. Back when I'd thought the Devil King's advance party was hiding within the nation, I'd also doubted the content of this particular clause. I was certain that I'd looked cute while doing that, unlike Pochi when she did it. I had wondered, why would they have a clause specifically dictating that they would fight against the Devil King? Would that not clearly put the Devil King at a disadvantage? And now, the Devil King was definitely at that disadvantage. The nation was already under the Devilkin's control, and the same Devilkin strove to defeat the Devil King. In this era, the Devilkin was receiving peak levels of worship, so much so that the holy warriors could not be born into this world. Their power could be considered that great and dreadful. I had made a miscalculation. Never would I have expected this quest to defeat the Devil King to turn out to be a three-way struggle. Well, no, they were using humanity as disposable chess pieces. The Devilkin probably would not be against us, given that the circumstances were not thrown off the rails. You could say that the Devilkin has finally taken direct action to take this world for themselves. What do you mean by, well, discussing that topic now would not do anyone any good. Besides, Asley, I thought you had something you wanted to ask us. The divine messenger said as if he'd seen through me. He took a sip of tea while waiting for me to shoot out the question. And yes, I did have something I would like to ask him. I had gotten my level to 100, and had started to acquire some positively influencing titles. From my training under Tus, I had learned a new method of using magic, and also attained a great deal of strength not tied to my level and numbered statistics. But, a big fat but at that. What Gramps had said to me during our first encounter in this dream world, that I must devote myself to my studies, had I been going in the right direction thus far? Had I disappointed him? Would he say that it had been no good at all? I had a feeling that it had been one major cause of my worries. That was why I would like to ask him, right here and right now. Gramps, am I getting stronger? You still have a long way to go, Master. Your abilities aren't even on MY level yet. Alright, that totally ruined the moment. Anna, LOL, that sure did. Chapter 100, Nice info for y'all. Devote yourself to your studies, boy. Gramps said once again as he smiled and faded away. At the same time, I proceeded to pull Pochi's cheeks to their new record horizontal length. Although I hadn't been able to get an answer out of him, the implications pointed toward my results being satisfactory. Rather than occupy myself with worry, I ought to be daring and charge onward. When I decided so and willed my mind to return to my real dream, my cheeks were pulled to their new record horizontal length. When did the situation reverse on me? 9 o'clock in the morning, 26th day of the 3rd month, 94th year of the War Demon calendar. My face hurts. I woke up to the sight of Pochi's normalized stomach, a stark contrast to how disgustingly inflated it had been last night. For the record, there was a fair amount of space for all of us in this room. When did she even slip onto my bed? What? Last night you insisted so much that I don't get close to you, but it's suddenly fine for you to get yourself close to me after your stomach's been deflated or what? Oh, for the love of God. While I was stuck being exasperated at her behavior despite her being my familiar, Pochi opened her eyes, presumably because the heat of my head was no longer on her. Wah. Good morning, sir. Good morning. Go wash your face and get ready. Looks like Betty's already up. Yes, sir. Well, there's that, and I'm hearing the inn staff cleaning up the room next to ours. We had all agreed to meet up at 9:30. Betty, being a woman of discipline and all, would probably say that we had overslept. We'd better take care not to break any of the inn stuff too. Pochi washed her face at the water tank, and I stood next to her, brushing my teeth. Such was one scene we had gotten quite used to. So much that I'd get this unpleasant strike of déjà vu occasionally. Would this mundane routine of ours be done away with once the Devil King enters his fetal stage? I ought not to go off that tangent. If I keep up with this attitude, there's no way in hell I'm winning against the Devil King, or the other devils for that matter. I must put my heart and soul into it. Once I psyched myself up by hitting my cheeks with my palms, Pochi asked me whether I'd like to use one of her nails. Now wait a second. I don't remember ever being into that kind of dangerous stuff though. After we were all ready, we went down to the inn's front counter, paid what we owed, and left the place. Looks like Betty isn't out yet. Pochi and I decided to sit around the side of the inn's entrance to wait for her. The city has already become quite active at this time of day, with the crowd flowing back and forth past us like an unstoppable river of people. The weather was nice with just the right brightness of sun rays, giving way to a fitting mood for our shopping day. So, when will we be going back, sir? I know it'll only take a few seconds with the teleportation spell, but considering what we've heard, don't you think we should hurry? Pochi showed quite a bit of consideration toward our situation as she talked, a rare occurrence coming from her. So rare indeed. The current matter concerned the place of my beginning that Warren and the Divine Messenger had referred to. I've had a teleportation spell circle set to take us to Falltown, and from there, we could reach the place in question in even less than a day. However, we still have quite a lot of things that need to be done, especially some things I would like to get done as soon as possible. I know I'm done with the rank-up evaluation now, but it'll still take a few days for it to be official. Until then, I'd like to do some things over here, and maybe go on some high-ranked quests with Betty. Since this is the capital, I'm sure there are a lot of those going around. The plan is to return to Bylania after 5 to 7 days, and then go to that place around the end of the 4th month. That's a big gap, sir. It just means we're so occupied with what's on our hands now. Although we had lived in it, the place had originally been a dungeon. There's no telling what could be left undiscovered in it. It wasn't as expansive nor as long as labyrinths, as far as I remembered, but it should be repopulated with monsters by now. Suddenly, a sharp streak of murderous intent rushed at me. Pochi and I stood right up where we sat and kept a vigilant watch on our surroundings. Who the hell could be after us here, of all places? Hey us. Long time no see, y'all. Godash, wait, huh? I turned to the voice coming from behind us and was met with the first sight of a familiar face after a 2 months absence. Mel. Hey, long time no see. It's been quite a while, Mel Chi. Y'all are looking swell as ever, I see. But it didn't look too good when y'all got spooked by that killing intent, yeah? Not enough training, I say. The sun just cast a restriction spell on me, that's all. That's right. I got caught in its cheerful rays, that's all. And using the same excuses as ever, I see. So what are y'all doing around here? Begging for spare change and stuff? Melchi asked as she readjusted her wizard hat. And so I explained to her how I had gone through the rank-up evaluation and the reason I am hanging around here today. I sat back down while that went on, and Melchi followed suit as she kept listening to my story. I see. Finding good titles, huh? That's right. If that's what you want, then I've got some good info to tell you. Melchi, as if she had recalled something, turned to me snappingly. Without otherwise breaking off her sitting posture, of course. If Melchi, or I, for that matter, broke posture, it could lead the arbitrary beginning of another one of her punishment games, the rules of which she would arbitrarily decide. Although Melchi herself had never brought up such a thing, Pochi and I had gotten to know her personality quite well over the 2 years we had trained together. Still, good info, she said. Let's just pray that her definition of good this time wasn't synonymous with my bad. I signaled with my face for her to keep talking, then waited for an answer. So y'all go north from Regalia, then when it starts to get stormy on the highway, turn west. That'll get y'all to this place called the Regalia Ravine. There've been some eyewitness reports of an ancient sacred beast there. By sacred beast, you mean Heiko the ashen tiger, Koryu the yellow dragon, Kaki the black turtle, or Shishircho the violet phoenix, the ones alternatively called the Tenju, or in our language, the heavenly beasts, is that it? Right, but actually, there was another sacred beast called Seiki Taigyu, Crimson King Bull, so technically there were 5 of them, but word has it that one of the old holy warriors had gone and made it their familiar, so now there's only 4 of them left. Whoa, wait a second. You're not telling me to go and fight it, are you? What? Shouldn't that be obvious enough? You kill one of them, and you're sure to get an awesome title that's totally worth your time and effort. Melchi declared, facial expression as normal as ever, a sight that I could only facepalm to, the heavenly beasts. They were not monsters, but beasts. Beasts that took to the sky and shed their brilliance in the darkness, earning them the name, heavenly beasts among the people. Legend has it that they were eccentric creatures capable of human speech, and that in the ages of devil kings, they had fought against his armies of monsters. One I'd heard of in particular, the Koryu, although called a dragon, was said to take the form of a serpentine creature instead. But really? Me, defeating one of those? It could be a good test of our abilities, sure, but without limit breakthrough, are we even capable of actually doing it? May you find success, Master. I'll go have fun with Fuyu today. Pochi put her front paws together in a religious prayer pose. Hey, hold it right there. If I'm going, then you're going, too. No way, sir. Those beasts blow the rank SS monsters out of the water, so there's no way I'm fighting them. Yeah, that's what I thought. Of course, because it's you we're talking about, sir. So anyway, which of the heavenly beasts was seen at the Regalia Ravine? The Shishircho. The violet phoenix, the blood of which was said to erase any and all disease from the bodies of those who drink it. Many adventurers of time long past had challenged for its blood, and as equally as many had died to it as a result. Nope, not going there. Nah ha 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 ha. Good to see that you're being honest. But it's a good opportunity since you're already here and all, so why not just go take a look? The heavenly beasts don't attack those who don't threaten them, you know. True, it might be worth to get myself a look at it. Pretty interesting stuff you're talking about there, Asley. Who's she? A voice called out to me from the inn's entrance. Looks like Betty's finally done getting ready. That reminds me, this is the first time she's ever seen Melchi. In fact, I think only Bruce got to see her before I had left town and all. Took you long enough, Betty. And she's Melchi, the senior apprentice under Toos. And my instructor. A woman's got many things to take care of, you know. Oh, I'm Betty. Nice to meet you. Melchi here. I prefer that y'all call me Mel, yeah, so, Ash. You had fun last night. Hoo-hoo, oh-hoo-hoo-hoo-hoo. Hey, cut it out. I thought I explained myself clearly enough. Ho-ho-ho-ho. It's a habit to twist the words without it turning into a lie, my man. And this is me we're talking about, hoo-hoo-hoo-hoo-hoo. While I felt my body temperature concentrate on my face, Melchi proceeded to scratch her head through the top of her wizard hat. It might just be my imagination, but Betty might have reddened up briefly as well. Me, with Asley? No way in hell, she said. Hey, watch how much you're drooling. You'll end up dehydrated again. Keep it coming, baby. Melchi stuck her thumbs straight up. And Betty's not at all fazed by those antics, now that's what I'd expect from her. You're an interesting girl, Mel. We have plans to go shopping after this with Fuyu, another friend of ours, so, you want to come with us? Betty said, perhaps in an attempt to establish a good friendship. But then Melchi suddenly facepalmed and produced an apologetic expression. Ah, sorry. Just remembered I need to do stuff, so that'll have to wait. Ash, you're still here tonight, right? Huh. Well, yeah. Why? I'ma do the night crawl into your room tonight, and we'll talk then. Alright, Ash, Pochi, and Betty. I'll see y'all later. Hey, would it hurt for you to say something less suggestive? Just like my question fading in the wind, Melchi zipped away like a tempest. Yes, her extreme speed had made her movement undetectable by the average eyes. Really, she never ceases to amaze me with her speed. She might even be faster than what Argent of the Silver General had shown me, now that I've thought it over. The three of us saw Melchi off, albeit without knowing in whichever direction we should be seeing her off. After a while, Betty broke the silence. So what are you two still sitting around here for? We were scared of the punishment game, that's what. Well, nothing in particular. Really, we're fine. Anyway, that Mel girl. She's quite incredible. Looks like your status as the strongest was meant to last only a day, Asley. One day the best, the second best on the next, huh? Well, Gaston did base his statement on those he knew at the time, so I suppose this was inevitable. I heaved a deep sigh, and in response, Pochi and Betty patted my back as they chuckled. Come on, Fuyu's waiting for us. Let's hurry to the Adventurers Guild. I can't wait, sir. All right, it's about time we got down to the shopping. Chapter 101, The Royal Capital Commercial District. When we all reached the Adventurers Guild, we saw that Fuyu was already waiting for us in front of the building. She wore a primarily black and white set of clothes with emerald green trimming, a uniform, perhaps. And if I had to guess, I would say the uniform of the Magic Guardians. Its size seemed a little too big, but the design fit her looks quite well. I looked at Fuyu as she stood, and was promptly Betty knocked my side with her elbow. Bah, she sure has a habit of nudging people this way. Sorry to have kept you waiting, Fuyu. Asley was chatting some girl up, so we lost a bit of time, you see. Hey, stop saying things that can be misinterpreted in that way. Besides, you were the one who was late. Now, let us be on our way, everyone. Betty shut out my retort and started walking up to Fuyu. She dragged me by my mantle with one hand, lining up the three of us with Fuyu in the center, Betty in the left, and me in the right. And then there's Pochi making weird noises as she climbed onto me and placed her front paws over my head, demanding a shoulder ride. Hey, you're kinda heavy, you know. Get off me. Humph, at least you could let me be the one sitting once in a while, sir. Oh, Pochi, you're coming with us too. Fuyu chuckled as she looked up and saw Pochi on my shoulders. Oh, for the love of. I fail to understand what's so delightful about this. Say, Fuyu, is that the Royal Capital Magic Guardians uniform you're wearing? Yes. How is it? Does it look good on me? Perhaps Fuyu had been looking forward to showing this uniform to us. Of course, it's a uniform anyone would want to wear, you know. There's no way it doesn't suit you. Well, thank you very much. From saying that, Fuyu's face flushed up faintly as she cast her eyes down. Betty then reached for Fuyu's head and brushed her hair. Looking from my perspective, those two sure gave off the impression of being sisters. Back at our agency, we also had Natsu giving off the impression of being Blazer's daughter. And Bruce being Bruce, he seemed to have hit it off real good with Lala. Well, whenever they hung out, Zar would be there as well, so they'd gotten in quite a few quarrels of words, but then again, that could be used as an indicator of friendship in a way, and Zar himself seemed to be getting used to that as well. So, today we'll be looking for Betty's new equipment, and what else? Oh, don't be such a fool, master. A woman needs no objective when she goes out shopping. Exactly. Betty winked in agreement with Pochi, then Fuyu chuckled once again while still keeping her eyes cast down. First of all, we're going to the Central District. Betty ran off with Fuyu following close behind her. I, on the other hand, totally missed the timing and ended up chasing after Fuyu instead, and then splendidly face-planted onto the ground 2 steps in. Further weighing me down was Pochi on my back, and she had the nerve to shout out her complaints. With that, I decided to deduct a side dish off her dinner tonight. The central district of royal capital regalia was filled with an outrageous degree of hustle and bustle. People streaming by, the shops pitching their stuff to customers, all were so loud that I'd thought there was a fight, but this was normal. Stuck in such a crowd, I was spooked, shoved around, and pushed to the ground, again. And once again, Pochi on my back had the nerve to shout her complaints. With that, I decided to slightly deduct the amount of food off her main dish tonight. Once I readjusted my glasses and took a good look, I could see that people here were not at all having it hard with their lives. I would never have expected this from a devilkin-worshipping society. Or rather, this could be a showcase of how well Gray and his subordinates had been running things. According to what I'd heard from Betty and Fuyu, the commercial district encompassed the main street that stretched from the southern section of this central district all the way to the south gate. Although we still had no destination in particular, we did have a general direction now, that is to go along the street to the south gate, and then go along the wall toward the west gate. Apparently, just that would be enough to eat up one day's worth of our time. As for why we planned to head toward the west gate, it was because Fuyu wanted to stop by somewhere around there. With that place ultimately set as our destination, we headed due south along the commercial district. I might have stated this before, but the royal capital sure is amazing. Weapon shops lined one side of the main street, with armor shops lining the opposite side. The variety was all-encompassing, with one shop being surrounded by and competing heavily against the others of similar products. But what surprised me the most was how everyone around greeted Fuyu as they noticed her pass by. It seemed that she had become quite famous within the royal capital, perhaps because she had always accompanied Gaston on his work. Anyways, I just can't say enough about how much Fuyu has grown. Having entered the Royal Capital Magic Guardians, a position Hornell and many other Magic University students strove for, and having received training under Gaston, one might say that this rate of progression was a given, but when she had started out, she had worked as a general assistant more than anything. It was almost unheard of for one to show this much of an improvement in such a short period of time. A little before noon, Betty went into a shop, apparently having finally found some armor she might be satisfied with. I'd thought she would have us help her choose, but in the end, she said she would decide by herself. While the rest of us sat in the store to wait for Betty, I sparked a conversation to ask Fuyu some things I had been wondering about. One of which concerned Lena's decision to enter the Royal Capital Magic Guardians. Say, Fuyu, how is Jean doing nowadays? Last I've heard, she'd entered the Magic Guardians after graduating from the Magic University the year before last. She was formerly a vice president of the Magic University Student Council, if I remember correctly. Yeah, that's her. If I remember correctly, she completed her troop training recently and was just officially installed as part of the brigade the other day. Other than that, I don't think there's anything particularly noteworthy. Jean, as an in-training troop. And with nothing particularly noteworthy, that's quite a way to show how impressive Gaston's hand-picked elites are as a whole. In-training troops are overseen by the Brigadier, Miss Viola, you see. After their official installation, they would be observed by Sir Gaston as well. But by that point, some may not be able to handle the regular troops' training, which results in them resigning from the brigade. Because of that, having nothing particularly noteworthy could be interpreted as a positive. Viola, Gaston's right-hand officer as the Brigadier of the Magic Guardians. With Gaston as the overall commander, this naturally meant she was the top of the troops. And below her rank, I think there were majors, captains, and the like. That sounds scary. Are you an in-training troop as well, Fuyu? I was registered to the brigade under special terms, so all of my training is being overseen by Sir Gaston himself. Doesn't that also sound scary in its own way? Still, I wonder what sort of training had they gone through. For some of them to voluntarily relieve themselves of such a yearn-for profession, it must be quite dreadful. After a while of me pondering that over, Betty returned to us with her brand new equipment, albeit one's not so different from her previous loadout. Hey, sorry to have kept you all waiting. You sure about that set, Betty? Wouldn't something a bit more weighty be a better fit? You remember that my speciality is speed, right? If I reduce that too much, it'll eat into my overall combat potential. Well, I guess that's true. This just occurred to me, how about I affix a spell circle onto the equipment that nullifies its feeling of weight, turning it into an artifact? Could that be done? I ought to go forward with this research sometime soon. Zemo, yes, please do. I am dying to see Betty flying around as a butterfly in heavy plate paladin body armor, Asley. Come on, let's go. Why yeah. Right behind you. It was after we left the shop and got back on the street that a growling, so loud that it would spook even the Devil King, came from Pochi's stomach. Considering how much she'd eaten last night, her digestive system must be quite impressive to have done away with all the stuff in just 10 hours. It's about time we got something to eat, I say. Oh, yeah, the crowd is getting thinner. Must be lunch time now. Is that really a reliable indicator of time? I'm starting to feel hungry, too. Fuyu put her small, delicate hands over her abdomen. It seemed that I was the only one who wasn't hungry, so I suppose I won't be able to say no. And so we went on our way, led by Pochi's nose, to a restaurant that she deemed to serve good food. Her nose turned to be right, the ham and veggies stir-fry dish was so delicious that I proceeded to order another. And Pochi, true to her dislike of veggies, proceeded to pass her vegetables to me while she kept her ham. Seriously, she would be better off ordering a different dish or something. I wanted to continue talking with Fuyu, but thanks to my dear familiar wanting to bask in the sun after the meal, I ended up accompanying the doggo outside instead. Well, Betty at this time has got some things she would like to talk about with Fuyu too, so I suppose going the other way for now was fine as well. We ended up sitting down on a nearby bench, with Pochi drumming her belly as we leaned against each other's backs. Then, suddenly, a boy appeared before me. What's with this kid? He looks rather thin, like his limbs were almost twigs, and his clothes were slightly dirty. Could he be from a financially struggling family? While I thought about it, the boy pulled on my mantle and spoke up, could you please buy some of our shop's weapons? You do realize that I'm a mage, right? Chapter 102, Warrior Asley. Really, what's up with this kid? His approach made him come off as a newbie merchant. Being pulled on my mantle repeatedly, I stood up from the bench and tried to shake him off. As Pochi and I had been leaning our backs against the others, she immediately tumbled over face up. Gah, now she's falling straight asleep, looking quite satisfied. As for me, I could only step forward as the boy still pulled the edges of my mantle. He's even smaller than Fuyu, and I wouldn't say that he's strong, but, oh no, it wouldn't be good for me to disappear from my group without a word. Pochi. Tell everyone I'll be back soon. And so she replied to me with a burp. Really, she stopped trying to be ladylike just because everyone else isn't around, huh? Hey, boy, the boy pulled my mantle quite frantically. It seemed that he didn't hear me calling him. We went out to the main street and headed a short way northward to where the lines of weapon shops were, and at a certain point, the boy turned to the side, leading me into a dimly lit alleyway. As I'd expected, the path was lined with smaller shops that hadn't been able to get a spot outside. Can't blame the kid for being this desperate, I suppose. I matched the pace of my steps with the boys as we walked on, and eventually, we reached the dead end of one of the passageway's branches. The boy, now out of breath, proceeded to point at the entrance of a worn-out shop there. Here it is. Yes, I can see that. If it was any further in, I would have gone through the wall. Now, what would I do if this boy brought out a group of bad people to try and mug me? Wait, no, I am the second strongest person in the Regalia Adventurers Guild. If anything, I'm definitely not someone who would be done in by ordinary civilians. You'll be fine, Asley. You'll be fine. All right, why, so how about you show me inside? Yes. For someone who'd practically forcibly pulled me here, it looks like he does have a cowardly side to him as well. Perhaps he'd done that out of impulse more than anything. Since he's still a kid, I'd say that is appropriate behavior for his age. Back when I was a child, nope, can't remember anything. The boy opened the door and went ahead into the shop's gloomy interior. It was lit up somewhat with candlelight, but my unadjusted eyes still couldn't see most of the things. Well, I'll just have to do this, then. Rise, torch. The spell's invocation lit up the interior with a light source. Whoa, awesome. You can use magic, mister. That's right, I sure can. So cool. My dad's sure to be surprised, too. Dad. Come on, get out here, Dad. We have a customer here. The boy shouted so as to get his voice all the way to the other side of the shop. Perhaps in response to that, rustling sounds could be heard coming from beyond the door behind the counter. It seemed that whoever was behind there was in quite a hurry. The door was opened by a push so strong that one would think someone was trying to destroy it, revealing a man in the back room, out of breath just like the boy had been a few moments ago. The build of his body was solid and quite intimidating, but his face had a gentle and kind air about it. That's a light source magic spell. Wow, I never imagined my shop would ever look so bright, Dad. He's super awesome, you know. He got the light out in even less than a second. Don't be rude to the customer, Lias. And apologies, customer, he's still a young kid and all. The shopkeeper man put on a bitter smile as he looked at my torrent dragon staff, my clothes, and then again at my light source spell, and immediately dropped his shoulders. And that's perfectly reasonable, I would say. A weapon shop would never expect a mage to visit them as a customer after all. Since mages needed to manipulate the arcane energy in the air around them to invoke spells, they would never wear heavy metal armor nor even remotely tough leather. The same case went for weapons. Even in close combat, they could defend themselves with augmentations and staff martial arts, so there was not much of a need for them to carry around conventional weapons. And in the case that they did carry some, it would mostly be just knives or short swords, and even then, it was more for utility than actual combat. I haven't even introduced myself yet. I am Don Kisaragi, the owner of this humble weapon shop. I'm sure Lias has made some arbitrary demands on the way here, so, please let me apologize in his stead for the problems he might have caused. The man was quite serious and sincere with his apology. He's quite a humble shopkeeper. Then again, he is a parent, so perhaps it was reasonable for him to act that way, That, or it's just the way he is. He did give off the impression of being a kind man, and his behavior definitely proved that to be true. And you, Lias. I'm sure I've already told you countless times that you can't pull in customers like that. But I was just trying to. Oh, no, I don't mind that at all. I said as I put myself between Don and the boy he just called Lias. Don seemed slightly troubled in response to that. Disciplining one's child is important and all, but there are better times and places for that. I'd prefer that it not take place while I'm still here. Seems like I can be quite selfish sometimes. My mantle is being pulled again. Mister, aren't you going to buy something? The convincing power of those upturned eyes. Those clouded pupils. Those welling tears. Those trembling hands. If I were to say, no, I'm not buying anything, he would surely be sent past his breaking point. Right. Without a doubt. Lias is casting a charm spell on me. There's no other way I could possibly describe it. I am Asley. I am an established mage who has studied the art of magic for 5,000 years. I am Asley. I am a mage who employs appraisal magic, teleportation, deca spell, and a myriad of magecraft. I am Asley. But since I've been afflicted with the charm spell, none of that matters anymore. I suppose, just for a day, just for today, I'll identify myself as a warrior for him. Looking like this, I'm actually a warrior, you know. Just give me some time to look at your stuff, all right? You mean it? I sure do. I patted Leah's head and turned to Don. Customer. You ought not to force yourself, don't worry. I'm sure I'll find something. I have no issue with you browsing, of course, but, while he spoke, I proceeded to observe the weapons in the showcases under the counter and the swords displayed on the walls. I was surprised, I must say. All of them were quite well made. At the very least, when compared to the shops on the main street, these were genuinely good, unlike those bargain items those other places offered. What are you doing around here, Asley? You never came back, so I had to ask Pochi to track your smell here, you know. Welcome, customer. I heard Betty's voice calling from behind me, and a prompt response of Don's voice in front. When I turned around, I saw that Fuyu was here as well, and also Pochi, looking drowsy. They took turns coming through the narrow entrance. Betty was the first to realize what the deal with this place was. Huh, what's this place? I knew she would have the same impression as I just had. And since she's a warrior, I'm sure she would have a more informed opinion, too. A weapon shop, what do you think about their stuff, Betty? They look nice enough on display, that's for sure. What's important is their durability and power, though. Would you mind if I tested them out, Pops? Betty slowly scanned over the blades on display and took one off. I have no issue with that, but all these weapons are my livelihood, you see, so. I'm afraid I don't have anything for you to test it with. That's fine. Betty, understanding of the shop's circumstance, took a dagger from her thigh holder and threw it into the air. It rose briefly and fell quickly, just as Betty brandished the blade in a backhand grip. I didn't even hear a sound, just felt a shredded streak of wind. Then I looked down and saw the dagger, now split into two. Leas clenched both his fists tightly. Wow. Look, Dad. This lady just cut iron like it was nothing. Yes, her skill is amazing. Don picked up one piece of the dagger and took a long, hard look at its cut section. I agree, Betty's cutting technique was quite impressive. Even Fuyu was surprised. Pochi, on the other hand, was sleeping in one corner of the store. So uncivilized. This blade is, what's amazing, Pops. How could a shop that sells this good of a weapon be left so run down? An honest compliment, and then also an honest criticism. In response to the latter point, Don cast his eyes down. It seems that his circumstances are more complicated than he had initially let on. Leas, impatient with Don's reluctance to answer, spoke up with a whisper that escalated to a shout. It's the nation screwed us over. Leas. You'd best watch your mouth. This lady here is one of the magic guardians, you know. Don harshened his tone and scolded Leas. Although they were no acquaintance of Fuyu's, her uniform was sure to give away the particulars of her job. Fuyu stepped back and exited the shop, then took a look at the signboard. Is she double-checking the store's name? If I'm remembering right, it was Drinium Road. A reference to the Holy Warrior's Drinium equipment to signify the shop's target standard of quality. I would assume. May I ask your name, sir? I am Don Kisaragi. Once Don introduced himself to her, Fuyu seemed to have understood something and continued speaking. Kisaragi. I knew it. Sir Asley, this man, he was a blacksmith exclusively employed by the royal castle up until 4 years ago. But not anymore. Why? I've only heard the story from Sir Gaston, but, apparently, it was because the quality his weapons was too high. At the time, I didn't know what that meant. But just the other day, when I had the chance to observe a training session of the Brave Guardians, which is the warrior counterpart of the Magic Guardians, by the way, I realized what the deal was, it's because of the replacement of weapons, then. In an unexpected direction, Betty followed up on the story. Yes, that is it. Fuyu nodded in agreement. With his weapons being this high quality, I would assume that there was almost no need to replace them. If the weapons were damaged or destroyed, they would naturally have to order replacements, but with the need for that almost eliminated, the royal castle's workshop ended up losing income. And if they were to drive the prices up, they wouldn't be able to sell the things at all. That was why the royal castle had driven Don out. Well, this was only one surface of the issue, I would say. The nation in its original form would never pass up this high level of craftsmanship, and even if it was expensive, I'm sure they would not be so against it. The true side of the issue, no matter how I thought about it, was the work of the Devilkin. The people's easier access to powerful weapons would definitely be a problem for them in the long run. It's not that much of a threat at this point in time, of course, but if the level of craftsmanship were to keep increasing at that rate, it would eventually become something dreadful to their cause. Weapons of mediocre power and durability make more money. Ridiculous, isn't it? Don's voice shivered as he said that with downcast eyes. But your designs are good, and the quality is way above most other places. Even in here, you're sure to get yourself some loyal customers eventually, don't you think? Betty threw out a rhetorical question. From what I could see, the prices here were not so different from the other places, either. It was unthinkable that in the royal capital of Regalia, the gathering place for so many skilled individuals, this level of quality went so unnoticed. Meaning, it has to be that, the nation was also heavily involved in the flow of the market. Don kept silent while Betty heaved a sigh. It seemed that they both had realized it as well. It's disgusting, really. It seemed that a sigh or two wasn't going to be enough for her. Chapter 103, Brigadier Viola. For the love of God, it's the worst. Their stuff is so good, but no one's giving them the attention they deserve. How did this even happen in the first place, anyway? Betty let out an incessant rant as she walked, and Fuyu behind her clenched her fists. Surely she'd felt a sense of responsibility toward the issue, what with her technically being employed by the nation itself. And it's not like she was meant to take it upon herself to do anything either. By impulse, I patted Fuyu on her fist. She looked up, revealing her face with a mix of disturbance, self-condemnation, and some other emotions I couldn't identify. Something like being happy, appreciation. I don't get it. Thank you very much, ahahaha. I don't know what that was for, but sure thing. Hey, Asley. Are you even listening to me? Yeah, I sure am. To recap, Betty had bought out all the throwing knives and daggers from the shop, and I had gotten myself a knife, as recommended by Don, for self-defense purposes. The transactions hadn't scored them a fortune or anything, but Leah's look of great appreciation was good for the heart. Ever since we left the place, Betty has been on that rant of hers. And Pochi, well. I'm dragging her along right now. She has quite a delighted expression, albeit one not good for my heart at all. She didn't go to sleep because she'd anticipated that we would get in trouble again, did she? Asley, you should teach Fuyu how to use the teleportation spell sometime soon. Huh? Why? Perhaps irritated at my lack of participation, Betty pulled me over by the collars of my shirt. Look here, if we've got access to it through you and Fuyu, it means we've got a connection between Bylania and Regalia. And so, we can bring over Blazer and Bruce and Haruhana. Scratch that, let's bring all of our warrior friends from the Bylania Guild to fill the shop with business. And pull business away from Bylania's weapon shops. Sure, that is that, and this is this. It's survival of the fittest. It's a crime for the better weapons to go unbought. She's technically not wrong, but... I mean, should we really be doing this? Perhaps we ought to consult Blazer and the others as well once we're back in Bylania. Of course, it would undeniably be a good thing to have easy access to the royal capital in the future. Alright, the shop's business aside for now, I'll teach Fuyu the teleportation spell when I can. Anyway, Betty, leave me some personal space here. Okay. Humph. I hadn't been able to complain about how my neck hurt during that, but it did hurt, so thank God she agreed to release me without hassle. And immediately after, I got grabbed on my collars again, this time by Fuyu. Why? You know the formula of the teleportation spell, Sir Asley. She's shaking my head quite roughly. The extraordinary strength of her pull made my field of vision to draw a semicircle. That sounded pretty nice. I'll remember to write it in the Principles of a Philosopher later. Heh 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 heh. I look forward to compiling all the famous quotes for the table of contents. No doesn't even cut it, he's the one who made that formula, you know. What dash? Is that true? Damn it. I thought you promised to not tell anyone. Please, she's already an adult, you know. I'm sure she understands, so there's no problem in telling her, right? Right? Okay, you agree. Good. She didn't even give me the time to reply to that. Seems like Betty's quite a bit irritated by what we had come across today. She's sensitive to things that she deems unreasonable, after all. I thought, the teleportation spell was Miss Irene's achievement, well. I sold that achievement to her, so to speak. Ha 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 ha, hearing me say just that, Fuyu looked as if she just realized something. Meaning, she must have realized that the money had been used to help her and the others. In a way, that was quite a reckless move I had taken back then. I must have mellowed down after getting to meet Melchi and Tus and receiving their guidance, though. Speaking of which, I'm not quite sure about Natsu, but Haruhana hasn't gotten to know this yet either. Wait, no, I guess Betty might have already told her about it, just like how she blurted out some unnecessary information today. I see. Fuyu said, tears welling up in her eyes. That, for whatever reason, prompted Betty to smile and hit my buttocks. That hurt. She sure is similar to her brother when it comes to this kind of thing. Now she's whispering something. With how fast she's going, no one would get what she's trying to say without the ability to lip read. And as it would turn out, I can. Ha. Now, let's see. BNICE, huh. You know that it turned out this way because of what you said, right? Damn it, she's hitting my butt again. Zemo, welcome Betty's social skills course. Air. Fuyu. You don't have to worry yourself about that. In a way, it was just a part of my job, so, ow dash. That hurt, Betty. What, NOTLIKETHAT? Seriously? You can't just expect me to have this kind of skill out of nowhere, damn it. So at the end of the day, if everyone is, ow dash. What now? HR. Don't be so nitpicky, damn it. NGH, so, yeah, as long as you're safe, then it's all good. I mean it, you know. So don't cry, alright? How's that, Betty? That's what you get when I go all out. Although I had put up that performance with all my soul, Betty still seemed dissatisfied, but with a certain degree of acceptance of it as well. I swear, today has to be one of the most unlucky days I've ever had. Now I feel compelled to go home soon, otherwise another catastrophic development might take place. We were already done with shopping, more or less, so the only thing left is Fuyu's stop. But wait, where's the place again? And what does she even need to do there? I remember her saying it was in the direction of the West Gate, but since I have yet to acclimate myself to this city, it's hard to imagine what it would actually be. I mustered all of my soul to keep up with Fuyu as she kept walking on without stopping her tears. Along the way, Betty hit me on my buttocks from time to time to try and get me to do something. It took a while, but Fuyu eventually did stop crying. I swear, this might even be harder to deal with than S-ranked missions. By the time Fuyu wiped off her last tear, the sun has started to set. I understand now, Sir Asley. Why Sir Gaston has recognized your abilities, and why Miss Irene always talks about you. You've met Miss Irene before. Yes, most recently, just the other day in fact. She has come to Regalia in order to visit Sir Gaston at the Magic Guardian's headquarters west of here. Wait, did she just say west? Wouldn't that mean? Oh, I see. Irene had been here. What for? I don't think I'd ever heard of a duodecad conference assembly being held around here recently. Personal businesses, perhaps. And today, there is another person that would like to meet you, Sir Asley, so there it is. No matter how I think about it, it's definitely something that wouldn't benefit me. Moreover, I have an especially bad feeling about this particular instance. How should I go about avoiding this? I see. Best to not keep them waiting, then. Let's hurry on our way. Yes, of course, she said. With me being pulled along by Fuyu, whose mood had suddenly taken a 180-degree turn, we walked along the royal capital's inner wall as we headed toward the west gate. In fact, it wouldn't be an exaggeration to say that she was now more cheerful than normal. So much so that Pochi even woke up from the impact. Right when she had reached our destination, no less. Pochi read the letters on the signboard in front of us, and then promptly turned around to look at me. Are you messing with me or what, master? See, Pochi, I'll admit straight up that I didn't want to come here either. My, what a coincidence. What a coincidence, indeed. The signboard had these imposing letters written on it, Royal Capital Magic Guardians. Even from out here, I could feel the dense arcane energy drifting about the air and hear the energetic, soulful shouts coming from inside. I feel oppressed. Surely everyone has known by now how bad I was at dealing with this sort of atmosphere. It's dangerous. I mustn't go inside. That was what my instincts told me. Without a doubt, nothing good can come out of this. Pochi and I swallowed nervously at the same time, with me heavily considering the usage of the teleportation spell right about now, but then Fuyu proceeded to speak to us with a beautiful smile, Sir Asley. That person there is Brigadier Viola, the one who had said she wanted to meet you. The first thing that caught my attention was her deep violet eyes, made prominent as blazing flames by the cosmetics around them. Obviously, she wore the same charming uniform as Fuyu was, but with the addition of a hefty mantle over her shoulders. Estimating from her looks, she might be in her 40s or 50s, but the aura of arcane energy drifting around her felt quite young. So this is Brigadier Viola of the Royal Capital Magic Guardians, in the flesh. Fuyu ran up to her and started talking about something, well, about my arrival, from the looks of it. She looks quite a bit more nervous than when she was with Gaston, doesn't she? Ah, now they're looking at the rest of us. Please come on in. I'd rather not, ma'am. Chapter 104, This Looks Good Enough. Zemel, dear readers, from my personal experience, I would strongly recommend you to shut any self-identification towards Asley out and read this chapter from a perspective of an observer. Well, I warned you, pressed on by Betty's hits on my buttocks, I took one reluctant step forward after another. At this time, Pochi was putting up a disgustingly blatant bluff of a fearless face as she stared at me. Whatever could be wrong with her this time? The wind carries with it an evil arcane energy, my dear master. I propose that I be put on standby here to observe its influence. Good gracious, what a loyal dog you are. You're coming with the rest of us, no questions asked. No. I don't wanna. Pochi clung to the Magic Guardian HQ signboard. Gah, now she's gigantifying. Can't, pull, wait, no, don't underestimate my pecs and biceps, doggo. Don't worry, no one's gonna bite you in there. Come on. That's the least I'm worried about. No. I had been slow to realize and slow to remind myself when enough was enough. Yes, I had failed to realize what I had been doing. That the nails of Pochi's front paws had dug into the signboard. That if I were to keep pulling, she would carve 3, or even 4, beautifully straight lines over its letters. I had strained my pharyngeal constrictors and pulled with all my might, and promptly cursed the power of my pecs and biceps. Pochi's nails had slashed over the first 2 words of the signboard. I, through pulling her, had changed the building's name to Capital Magic Guardians with my avant-garde art technique. In the end, I, and Pochi also, realized that the words Royal Capital on it were all but gone. We've gone and done it now. The two of us turned to look at each other, tears of fear streaming down our faces. I mean, with a name like this, anyone would end up thinking this was a financial services agency or something of the sort. The Brigadier lady, witnessing all that go down, briefly had a troubled look on her face. Fuyu, on the other hand, did not seem particularly troubled, but rather, she had frozen over. Strange. I don't remember using any ice magic spells. Even Betty was at a loss as to what to say to us. My familiar and I couldn't do anything but hug each other. Master. Look at what you did to the signboard. This is the worst. I say this is a new peak of your foolishness, sir. What? Did she just sell me off? Damn this stupid dog. Mark my words. I will have my revenge. My methods will be even worse than what the Devil King's resurrection will result in. But this isn't the time to be thinking about that. What should I do now? Just an apology won't be enough. This was equal to vandalizing the symbol of the nation. Maybe I'll call Gaston and apologize. To Gaston? Yeah, no, he'll kill me by the time I'm done. Then I'll have to do that. All right. I'll do it. This fool shall unleash the greatest strategy of his lifetime. Clear my face of doubt. Straighten my mouth and open it with confidence. Look sharp, but not intimidating. And for the finishing touch. Be cool. Let's go. Heh, is this all it takes? There, I said it, damn it. Even Pochi was so put off by my performance that she fell silent on the spot. And I myself, on the other hand, had to prepare to burrow into the ground as soon as possible. For it had taken only a few seconds for me to come to my senses. Such was immediately apparent from the tidal wave tear tremor of my face. I'm panicking so freaking bad. Oh. Whatever did you mean by that? That's, well, you see, the lady's warning through her piercing, blazing eyes took away my control over my body. Okay, seriously, what the hell did I even say? I mean, regretting it now wouldn't help with anything. I'll have to be careful that I don't make another mistake on top of that. But that gaze directed right at me is suggesting that I won't be easily forgiven. Now, what should I do? Maybe I should just get started on my revenge on Pochi right now. To my side, Pochi proceeded to clasp her front paws together. It was as if she thought she'd realized what I had been going for. Yes, most times she did this gesture, her realization had turned out to be off the mark. Don't say it, you mustn't say it. This looks good enough, that's what my master was trying to say. I'd heard at some point that dog meat was delicious. I wonder if that's true. Maybe I'll try some tonight, I suddenly contemplated. I was so furious to the point of being calm that such mundane thoughts started taking over my mind. Let's feature that stream of thought in the Principles of a Philosopher as well. You too? Betty called us from the side, sounding slightly flustered and also slightly nervous. Even the almost no-nonsense Betty is acting like that. I sure have pulled off something quite incredible. Someone looks like she'd busted a vein, just like how I used to make Irene look like so many times, namely, the look of the Brigadier's forehead. Quite prominently, too. It's over. Even if I'm not killed, my reputation's gonna dip to the negatives. This will surely be my last. What are you all doing out here? A familiar voice called out from behind me. The image that popped up in my head perfectly matched the one I saw when I turned halfway around. And that was the very reason why that voice had practically overridden the whole scene's priority. Sir Gaston. Viola's hoarse yet dignified voice and Fuyu's clear voice pierced through me as they addressed Gaston. I shivered while still in the middle of turning around. Pochi turned around, albeit looking satisfied as if she had layered a spell of confidence over her face. Gaston, in a gesture rare of him, expressed confusion as to what that meant, and promptly understood once he caught a glance of the signboard. Oh, crap. I'm so dead. Gaston stepped forward, approaching me, or so I thought. Instead, he walked right past me and went to Viola and Fuyu instead. Sir Gaston, these people were let them be. Huh. But sir. They have shown disrespect toward the royal capital magic guardians I said let them be. Viola promptly shut her mouth. Why? Why'd he just let that go? Wait a second, he isn't gonna say something like, let them be after I've killed them, right? I was shaking so hard that the key-shaped pendant I had received from Lena clattered against my mantle's clasp. All the while, I tried working out a way to haul Pochi over my shoulders and run, but just either one of those would take all my strength to pull off. When I felt my brain burning hot, and came to the conclusion that the only way to survive would be to run off by myself, Gaston proceeded to say something I never would have expected. This looks good enough. Gaston repeated the exact same words that Pochi had said, the words that had given me a craving for dog meat, as he ran his fingers over the signboard's letters. Pochi stood on her hind legs, crossed her front legs, let a proud groan out her nose, and winked at me. Yup, no dinner tonight, her and I both, that is. Young man, come in and have some tea. Ah, yes, sir. We have sweets, little girl. Yes, sir. By just those brief words of invitation, we promptly followed the man inside, wordlessly passing by Viola and Fuyu. Wait, what about Betty? When I turned around, I saw her at a barely visible distance, waving me goodbye. This will probably be the last time I lip read today. Let's see. Looks dangerous, goonahad. Ah yes, adventurers, so free to choose their battlefields. I'm feeling like going back into my cave right about now. Viola, get things ready. Right away, sir. Getting ready. Get what ready? Another bad thing for me, no doubt. At this time, Pochi was leading the line with quite a triumphant strut, with Fuyu following her, and me following right behind the latter. Fuyu occasionally glanced at me, and I gave it my best effort to not make eye contact with her. I held no doubt in my mind that I had surprised her quite a lot. Now, don't you worry, it's just an interference in my arcane energy, or so I want to think so. Looking from the perspective of others, I must be panicking to a dangerous degree right now. I better write this down. A philosopher, at the end of the day, is still human, there. Now that I took a good look, the Royal Capital Magic Guardians HQ was quite palace-like in style with a primarily white color motif, and had spell circle vividly carved onto its enormous gate. This formula seems rather interesting, doesn't it? Always active, invoked by injecting additional arcane energy. As for its actual content, it was a protection system spell. I see, it's for making sure the gate stays shut. The sheer size of the gate meant that it could be used to let quite a large number of people through at once. I'm willing to bet that this was used as the brigade's final line of defense. Have you noticed, young man? I sure did, sir. What do you think? I'm sure Fuyu had interpreted Gaston's question differently. But I'd heard it as follows: will this be useful come the Devil King's resurrection? My experience with the Ogre King was still fresh in my mind despite it being over 2 years old by now. Can this gate withstand a single blow of that monster's tremendous strength? Nope, no way in hell. Therefore, it'll last a solid minute, I say. Heh 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 heh, that's what I thought. What a coincidence, sir. What a coincidence, indeed. Gaston proceeded to go through the procedure of opening the gate, keeping his mouth tightly shut. Chapter 105, The Brigadier's Disciplinary Measure. The gate opened to reveal a spacious training ground. From it, a tremendous degree of fighting spirit from all the shouting struck right through my heart. Ugh. Howa. The first thing I saw was the soldiers in training, not their magic, but their bodies. Earth Lance. Fire Wall. They deliberately used spells of disadvantageous elements to defend against incoming attacks. Hell Needle. Aegis Protect. With how intense they're going at it, they're going to die instantly if they stop defending, aren't they? Anyway, that Aegis Protect support spell sure was amazing. I could use it as well, of course, but with the number of soldiers here able to use it, it goes to show how advanced the Royal Capital Magic Guardians are. A high output of arcane energy could be felt from among them, particularly near one edge of the perimeter. Ha! Vestment Thunder. Gah! One of Gaston's brows twitched. Former Magic University Student Council Vice President, Jean the Lightning Flash. It's been over 2 years since I'd last met her, I believe. Looks like she's holding her own more than well enough against the regular brigade members. She wore the same brigade uniform as everyone else present here, which meant her fascinating, splendid thighs were obscured. Of course. The magnitude of her arcane energy has increased considerably, feeling more focused than ever, which goes to show how well she had been keeping up with her training. And that armor of electricity. I'd like to know how to make one as well, but she'll probably never agree to teach it to me. Stop! A brawny man, standing arms crossed in the back, shouted in a thundering voice. Immediately following, the training maneuvers stopped, and the soldiers snappingly lined in a formation. Their numbers here, about 1,000, I would say. I couldn't get a reliable estimate, but that should be about right. Oh, looks like Jean's already noticed that I'm here. I refrained from waving to her out of consideration that she may dislike it, only for Pochi to wave her hand at her instead. Well, 4 foot. Same difference. What do you think? Gaston asked the same thing that he had asked just a few minutes ago. Why does he want to hear my opinions on things that much? Well, not that I'd figure that out by thinking about it now. So, their war potential. By mages' standards, they are quite powerful. But for mages to stand up against SS-ranked monsters, they would need swift movements and even greater raw power. That was the very reason Waitus had trained me the way he had. As unpleasant a character as he was, I am thankful of him. Just for that, if anything. Now, as for these mages, they are trained fairly well. However, frankly, the yield of 2 years' worth of training I had gone through, when compared to what Jean has achieved in the same amount of time, was far greater. Tus had told me at one point that, my muscles will never betray me. I did not quite think of it as believable when I'd first heard of it, but after I had actually gone through with the training, I did find that it gave me a tremendous boost to my magic invocation ability. With my fortified abilities and improvements to my mobility across the board, in just 1 year, Pochi and I had been able to fell a Chaos Lizard, an SS-ranked monster, albeit we barely managed to do so with a bit of luck involved. If I were to consider whether or not these soldiers would be able to pull it off with how they are now, I'd say half of them would be wiped out in the process, and that's being optimistic. But should I really say that outright to Gaston? I'd been able to say it easily last time because it was about a gate, but it would be extremely difficult to make myself say the same about all these people who work to improve themselves day in and day out. Pochi was supposed to cover for me in times like this, but she's still occupied with waving to Jean, so that's not an option right now. We're not a financial services agency, young man. You don't have to analyze things that much. Still angry about the signboard, huh? Good on him for noticing what I've been agonizing over, though. Well, same goes for Irene, these two seem especially good at reading my mind. I would say, at most half of them would make it. At worst, 30%. That's the estimate I can make now. The current rough estimate is that it would take a quarter of a regular mage brigade to take down SS-ranked monsters. And even then, at most only 4 at the same time. Will that simple of a calculation be enough to work on, sir? Of course not. Lend us your wisdom, young man. Come again. What are you so surprised about? You think I don't have my problems to deal with? Well, I'd always thought you were an omnipotent super grandpa, sir. Anyway, are all these soldiers going to stand in formation and wait through our whole conversation? Their legs ought to be worn out by now. But it is quite rare for Gaston to be relying on me, or anyone at all, for that matter. This man has helped me out quite a lot, so I certainly would like to do anything in my power to repay him. In the end, I'll have to rely on him again, as much as I'd rather not. I'll write up a letter of recommendation. To whom? An acquaintance of mine. I would say that he's on par with the holy warriors. But he's also quite eccentric, you see, so I reckon he'll never offer his aid directly. And even disregarding direct assistance, it's highly possible that he'll not do anything at all. Even if the world is in danger. Even then, yes. I see. Meaning, Sir Gaston, what you get out of this, and how much of it, will depend on your approach. With Gaston's personality, he might actually just make it through. And what will you do, young man? I already have somewhere I absolutely must go to. It concerns this issue as well, so. Ha ha ha, if you say so. Was it just me, or did he turn a bit gloomy there? What's going on? Anyway, how much longer will we be standing here, sir? Weren't we going to talk over some tea? The tea can wait. Ha. Now we have a problem, sir. Pochi reacted to that one statement, of all things, resulting in an expression as if today was her worst day ever. Little girl, if you can only keep your patience for a while longer, I will give you my portion of cake as well. Yes, sir. Now it's her best day ever, apparently. And Gaston, he's suddenly gotten so good at handling Pochi. Unlike years before, it looks like he's having fun now. Maybe he's secretly fond of animals, just like Billy, what with his familiar being a mouse and all. So what's on the agenda, sir? You see, Viola has objected to your enrollment into the brigade. I don't remember ever replying to the invitation, though. Of course, I understand that you've got things to do now, that you've changed over the past 2 years. But that doesn't necessarily mean I'm just letting the possibility go. Gaston took me by surprise with the gradual harshening of his tone. All the soldiers were visibly confused, and Fuyu seemed quite spooked. Even Pochi ended up closing her eyes. At any rate, he was right in that, 2 years ago, I would have wished to be here. I did genuinely feel happy when Gaston had invited me back then. But now I had so many more important things to do than work here. Which was why I had decided to consider that invitation as long as I was still in the Magic University. But, it looks like Gaston had other ideas. I don't have much time, meaning I can't afford to spend any of it here. All things considered, I'd be better off cutting the bridge here. That said, I understand that at this point, you're not meant to be stuck working here. So in the end, what was Gaston trying to tell me? I've already discussed that point with Viola. Do you want to know her response? What is it, sir? If he does possess that degree of ability, then we ought to let him in, that's it. Wait, but didn't she just how'd she just up and reverse her opinion so suddenly? That was just the first part. Then I told her that I'd make you the commander. Needless to say, she was enraged. Looks like everything's ready. Look there, young man. She's waiting oh so eagerly for your enrollment into the brigade. Wow. Unreal, bro. Wait. What did Gaston just say? Me, the commander? Even disregarding my obviously unfitting personality, there's no way I can work it out. Yeah, absolutely no way. But it goes to show how high of an evaluation Gaston has of me. I appreciate that, if anything. Viola walked in a straight line from the back row, stopping in the center of the training ground. I, upon being nudged ahead by Gaston, dragged my feet toward where she was, with the soldiers dividing their formation to make way. Remember that we're having cake after this, master. That was my familiar's idea of what constituted an encouragement. But, well, she's not wrong. I could go for some tea right now, too. That bad feeling I'd felt turned out to be true. Again. Man, I sure have been fighting a lot these past few days. Well, technically most of my activities hadn't involved fighting, but still, it sure has been quite a while that I've last had a one-on-one match. You see, Sir Gaston told me that, if I'm capable of killing you, then I'm free to do so. How irresponsible. But I don't intend to do that. I'll keep you alive, and let you die off by yourself. Don't worry. Were you a former bandit or something, Miss Viola? Quite a nasty tongue for a brigadier, don't you think? Well, no, she is part of the nation's regular army, so her being stern toward her inferiors could be a part of her job. Might be why she ended up coming off as rude, or is it? By this time, the soldiers have already retreated to the sides of the training ground, leaving all the open space for just me and Viola. Are you ready? No dash, let's go. So scary. But, what should I do? I mean, there's no way I can possibly lose this fight, is there? Chapter 106, Training Menu. Standing in front of Viola, who has already started drawing a spell circle, I found myself lost in thought. Why is she not using swift magic despite having a staff with her? Since I'm not having dinner tonight, should I go all out tomorrow morning? If I actually get to be the commander, what should I do? These kinds of things. That reminds me, she's simply known as Viola, Brigadier of the Royal Capital Magic Guardians. Doesn't seem to have a nickname to speak of, otherwise it would have been featured prominently among the list of her titles. Strangely enough, it would make a fair bit of difference in one's battle statistics despite it simply being an indicator of one's fame and/or popularity. Blazer's was Silver Lion, Bruce's was Silver Wolf, Betty has gotten the title of Silver Tiger over the past 2 years, and even Lena is now recognized as the Silent Witch. I do possess the unique title of Eternal Fool in my list, but it's not very often that I'm called as such. And when it did get used, they were mostly as jokes from Bruce and Pochi. Ah, now I want an actual nickname for myself, too. By the time I got my attention back to the game, I noticed that Viola seemed quite offended. Huh. Whatever is this lady so angry about this time? You seem confident in yourself. What, you think you can win against me with just your legs or something? Yeah, can't blame her for being enraged, I suppose. I never even realized myself that I'd ended up crossing my arms. Then I yawned. Great. But still. Her clean magic formulas and systematic spell circle, it was actually quite impressive how by the book her magic spell preparation was, but that also made it painfully easy to read what she was trying to do. This would have been greatly effective against monsters, but it wouldn't do well at all against someone like me who has done extensive research on magic. Take for example the formulas she's putting into this spell now: materialization, movement, invocation, and arcane energy input reduction, the last one probably because she was going easy on me. I only need to figure out its attribute, then I'm good. Judging from how it's taking in arcane energy from the earth, and the overall complexity of the core formulas, Delta Earth, I could tell beforehand that it was an advanced level Earth-attributed spell. And since I knew that she was going easy on me, considering the input reduction formula. Rise, Earth Control. I could repel it easily enough with an elementary leveled spell of the same attribute. The earth wall created by the advanced level spell dispersed, returning it to its mundane dirt form. Ah, now I'm glad I hadn't tried the ground burrowing escape technique that I'd considered using. Humph, I won't hold back this time. Delta Earth. Now she used the Delta Earth via swift magic. I couldn't possibly read its power level, but estimating from its speed and intensity. Rise, Rock Javelin. I might just be able to take it with an intermediate level spell. Rocks rose from the ground and streaked at the Delta Earth's wall like javelins. That was actually far easier than I'd expected. Did that Delta Earth spell get its formula tampered with or something? I mean, I might have been able to take that last one with just Earth Control, too. And if this keeps up, I reckon she's going to pull out one spell after another, it'll go on forever. And that means I'd never get to my tea time, wouldn't I? Are you sure you want this to drag on? What? Whoops, not good, not good. I might have sounded a tad bit condescending there. I'll have to be careful not to offend her while I communicate my demand across. So, how about this? Well, I mean, Gaston is waiting for us to be done, and stuff. What did you just call him? Gah, of all times to accidentally slip in an inappropriate joke, it just had to be now. I would have been fine if I spoke just like how I usually did, too. I swear I have the worst timing sometimes. Well, no turning back now. But seriously, why do mages all go so crazy when not themselves, but their superiors, are disrespected? Hype up. Speed up. Rise, rise, all up. 2 spells via swift magic, and then also a new spell circle. Calling it now, that's a power-up. Power-rise, parasitic control. I'll just have to use this. It's supposed to be 2's signature cheap trick, but I'll have to resort to it for things to go smoothly. What in the blazes? Besides, it was me who had invented parasitic control ages ago, so it's perfectly reasonable that she didn't know what it was. 2 seemed to have learned it at some point through his own means, but my version's performance is still better, so that's at least one thing I have over him. Taking control of the power-up spell circle and disassembling it, I then absorbed its remaining arcane energy for myself. Ugh, try this. Too slow. Viola, seeming to have opted for a reckless approach, charged at me, only to be blindsided by my evasive maneuver. As she turned back around, I exploited the timing to trip her off balance, and then knocked away her staff when she tried to hold herself up with it. A Wiseman rod with 4 swift magic slots. Nice. While Viola fell, I flung the staff in Gaston's direction. Gaston promptly grabbed it and grinned. I'll have you hold on to it for a bit, old man. I'd also asked this back when Pochi fought Baron at the cathedral, but have the people in high positions gotten weaker these days? This lady is the Brigadier, for crying out loud. Ah, shucks. Now I just remembered how I'd laid down magecraft traps back at the cathedral, and now it's coming back to me. Right. Maybe I should put it to use here. Go, ground spell delivery. Why did you not finish me? Me falling over just now must have given you plenty of opening. It's for the sake of my convenience, you see. Fooling around again. Viola has now fully switched to close-quarters combat, going at me with martial arts on the level of B-ranked adventurer warriors. She also secretly drew spell circles between blows, but as I'd seen through that, I could get rid of them easily enough with parasitic control. Oh, and looks like it's almost here. Where are you looking at? At your feet, Miss Viola. Rise. Deca boundary. The ground spell delivery had run along the ground all the way to the cathedral, took a Deca boundary trap that I had set up there yesterday, and brought it back here. The newly appeared craft circle below Viola's feet radiated and wrapped the lady in its light. This is, the same as Sir Gaston's. When did you even? Yesterday. What, did you prepare that far ahead dash? No way in hell. But you know, I wanted to act cool once in a while, too. And since I did make it originally as a preemptive measure, so I technically wouldn't be lying. Just a preparation for a broad range of possibilities, ma'am. I'd totally expect my opponents to be surprised, of course, like they'd think I've got the evil eyes or something. I think the real evil eyes with the prediction power and all that jazz haven't been around since the time of the last set of holy warriors, though. I've heard stories of Hero Giorno having used them, but that's it. After a while, the Deca boundary magecraft faded away, causing Viola to collapse on her knees. I'll just admit that I've lost. That wasn't even a fight at all. But I must say that your formulas were beautifully drawn, ma'am. Doing that is going to reduce effectiveness against human opponents, but it'll work well against monsters, I'm sure. Now you're talking like you could tell what spells I was trying to cast. Well, about that, ma'am. You sure outdid me in every way. Viola said that to me, then raised her right hand and shouted, raucous. Reevaluate and summarize our training program. From today on, I will be joining you. Yes, ma'am. Sir Gaston. I will be turning in my report shortly. All right. Now, young man, time for tea. Yes, sir. By Fuyu's guidance, we were shown the way to Gaston's office. Is he sure that we can enter such a supposedly important place? Pochi, while not quite fully opened up to Gaston yet, sat in a chair near him and shouted, "There's nothing on the table," over and over. Gaston heaved a sigh, took a box out of his desk drawer, and passed it over to Fuyu. Looks like it contains the cakes Gaston referred to earlier. The box gave the impression of being quite a luxurious item, being gift-wrapped in emerald green paper. The sweet fragrance from within made Pochi shiver from head to tail. These are rice cakes, a confection from an Eastern nation. I haven't had a reason for diplomatic travel in quite a while, so it was hard to get my hands on them, but they certainly are delicious, I assure you. I can tell just from the smell, sir. Hurry, Fuyu. Time's a-wasting. Hoo-hoo, of course, of course. While Pochi was occupied with her urging, Gaston turned away and tapped his index finger several times on his forehead. Is he initiating a telepathic call? What is it, sir? Young man, are you hiding something? Ah, well, rather than hide, I was planning to contact you about it later today. I only learned of this just last night, too, you see. So. There are devilkin ruling among the nation's higher-ups, apparently. Lloyd, Ishtar, Gray, either one of them, or even all three. What? Explain. I gave Gaston the rundown of all the information I'd obtained up to now. About the devil worship that has been going on throughout this nation. That the devilkin here intended to derive power from that worship to try and defeat the devil king. And that the human population were being treated as disposable chess pieces. And that's everything I have for now. Humph, now that's what I call a disgusting development. You believe it? Just like that? I've considered that possibility at one point. I haven't seen the War Demon Emperor out of the castle at all these past few years, you see. Only got to meet him for official businesses, and even then, I've never spoken to him directly. That and there's that one time he tried to send me to my death. Are you referring to the time you were sent to hunt an S-ranked monster? I've heard it from Miss Irene, something about an order from Ishtar of the Black. You know what I had to take on? A freaking doppelganger. Yeah, the thing was tough as nails. One of them a monster without a physical form, an astral, if I remember correctly. This particular one would imitate the form and abilities of its enemy, or something along that line. And its base defense was supposedly extremely high, so the few who had challenged it before had all been defeated. One would have to have quite a lot of flexible strategies to stand a chance, I reckon. See, that's why I called the War Demon Emperor a puppet monarch earlier. That is a possibility worth considering. Oh. Someone just arrived on the other side of the door. Oh, this presence must be Miss Viola. Looks like Viola is here. Apparently so. Enter. Immediately upon being granted the permission to enter, Viola opened the door slowly, taking care to keep it quiet, and stepped inside. Currently, Gaston was sitting in this chair, and I stood opposite to him. Realizing that Viola must be here to turn in her report, I stepped aside to make way for her. This is the new training menu, sir. By prioritizing what we have previously neglected, we can Gaston semi-forcibly snatched the paper roll off her hands, scanned through it, and then turned to look at me. Presenting the paper to me, he then stepped on my foot as if ordering me to read through it. Let's see here. If they're looking to train their magic, then, well, this looks reasonable. As for physical training, 3,000 push-ups, is she kidding? I've had to do 50 times as much, you know. 50 times this, I see. I forgot to hang up. I'm sorry, sir. Please forget that you've heard that, sir. I forcibly cut the telepathic call's link, then, as I felt cold sweat run down my forehead, retreated to a corner. Viola. Why yes, sir. From this, to this, multiply by 50 reps, sir. Oh, Mamma Mia, you're tuning into the Han Lee's Wuxia Adventures YouTube channel. We're so grateful for your support, and don't forget to subscribe to join us on this incredible journey through captivating stories. Your generosity through donations truly makes a world of difference, as it's the primary source of revenue that allows me to expand and enhance this channel for you. Thank you from the bottom of my heart for being a part of this adventure.